director of The Hills Have Eyes and Last House on the Left. A new masterpiece in fantasy terror. Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yours truly, Brevin Thompson, is back, and welcome back to my annual Halloween special. This time I'm going to be talking about a beloved 80s horror classic, A Nightmare on Elm Street, which was written and directed by the legendary Wes Craven. Rest in peace. This film has rightfully earned its place as not only one of the best horror films from the 1980s, but one of the best horror films of all time. How Wes Craven came up with The Nightmare on Elm Street is pretty interesting. Before he came up with the script, he was reading articles about this kid in Asia, I believe, where he was like having like these horrific nightmares and he was refusing to go to sleep. His parents like tried to put him through therapy. They tried to give him sleeping pills. He wasn't taking the sleeping pills, and he was doing everything that he possibly can to stay awake. Until eventually he did fall asleep, his parents put him to bed, and then think that this crisis is over, until eventually, they heard, like, the kid screaming, and he was, like, convulsing and everything, and they found him dead. And they find, like, all the sleeping pills that he hasn't been taking, and underneath his bed they find, like, a little Mr. Coffee machine with a hidden extension cord, and, like Wes Craven said, like, it felt like something out of a horror movie. The idea of, like, this kid, like, doing everything that he possibly can to avoid these horrific nightmares, and it was like he was haunted by some boogeyman. So he took that concept and came up with a very interesting idea for a horror film and gave us one of the best horror icons of all time, Freddy Krueger. How the film starts off is pretty interesting. At first, we see, like, Freddy, like, creating his signature weapon, the clawed glove, which is one of the most iconic weapons in horror film history. And then we see Tina, played by Amanda Wyss. I hope I pronounced her name right. If I didn't, I apologize. And we're led to believe that this is probably the main character of the film. We see her, like, going through the boiler room in the dream realm. And I love the creepy atmosphere that Wes Craven creates for the dream realm and the boiler room. Everything in the dream world, you get like this creepy atmosphere that Freddy has complete control of. And when it comes to Tina, like I said, we're meant to believe that this is probably going to be the main character of the film. But within the first 15 minutes, she's fucking dead. How her death scene is handled, we see, like, Freddy, like, cut her up with his glove, and, like, how they, like, use this rotating room in that one scene where, like, it looks like Tina is, like, being pulled by this invisible force, like, up to the ceiling. How they use the rotating room just for this one scene is genius. I think the large majority of the effects in the film hold up really well. One that I think stands out the most to me anyway is, like, the scene where we see Nancy, played by Heather Langenkamp, asleep, and there's, like, the Freddy, like, moving against the wall and just, like, slowly leaning towards her. Well, in fact, they had, like, this large layer of spandex, and they had, like, someone just they had, like, either Robert Englund or, like, some actor just like move, like, in the latex or the spandex, and the fact that that they use that and it still holds up to this day, it's astounding. I love that effect. I love it. And the fact that they try to recreate that in the remake with CG, I'm just like, it worked great in 1984, and if it ain't broken, don't fix it. One thing about the deaths in these movies, how they're executed by Freddy. You had, like, the first victim, Tina, who was sleeping next to her boyfriend, Rod, played by Corri. She was brutally murdered, and of course, people think that Rod was the one that killed Tina. And then later in the film, Freddy hangs Rod, and it's made to look like Rod committed suicide. However, when it comes to Glenn's death, who's played by Johnny Depp, this was Johnny Depp in his film debut, by the way, and how how Glenn dies is like he's sucked into the bed, and his mom comes into his room, and there's like this geyser of blood just like coming out of like Glenn's bed. And I have to draw upon this too, because I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of people have like addressed this, and I'm not gonna be like the only one who's like addressing this. While the first two deaths were like a murder, and it looked like the second death, I mean, and Freddy made the second death look like a suicide. How this kill is executed, even though like the effects used to make this like geyser of blood, I mean, they use the rotating room again for this scene. I mean, the effects look great. I mean, the geyser of blood and everything. Uh, I'm like, is anybody questioning? I mean, like, how the hell this happened? Because I'm pretty sure like people are like, is this some like supernatural shit going on here? Because I mean, people are going to be questioning shit, believe me. When it comes to Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger, he is just terrifying as this character. And everything from his movement, his laugh, and just everything, and especially the makeup work done on Robert Englund to bring this character to life, it just makes one of the best horror icons of all time. And the backstory that they decide to give Freddy, it's one that's really necessary for a character like this. We get that one scene where Nancy's mom goes over Freddy's backstory of how he was once a child murderer and how he was released on a technicality. So a mob of the parents of the victims he killed tracked him down, burned him alive, and now he comes back as a vengeful ghost, haunting kids in their nightmares. When it comes to Nancy, played by Heather Langenkamp, she makes an excellent final girl for this film. And I like how, like, after, like, her friends are killed, she's had enough of this shit, and she decides to fight back. And the third act becomes a little bit Home Alone-ish after she pulls Freddy into the real world, and she sets up, like all of these traps and everything. Another thing that I really love about this film is the score done by Charles Bernstein. That classic dun 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 dun. It's just one of those classic horror scores. It's right up there with John Carpenter's score for Halloween. That's how great this score is for A Nightmare on Elm Street. One thing I'm pretty sure conflicts like most people about this film is how it ends. Nancy confronts Freddy, and she realizes the only way to defeat Freddy is to rid him of all of his energy and not give in to fear. She turns his back on him, and then when Freddy tries to attack Nancy, he disappears. And so she walks out the door, and it appears like everything is fine. I mean, her mom's okay, despite the fact that Freddy killed her. And it's made to believe that, like, all of the events of the film was just one horrific nightmare. So Nancy goes to her friends, and the hood of the car, flips over, and then it's the Freddy stripes. The car is taken over by Freddy, and Nancy is pretty much fucked. And that one shot of, like, Freddy, like, taking Nancy's mom and just, like, yanking her, like, back into through the window. I mean, that plastic doll, I'm just like, oh my god, it's just like that. I mean, that effect, that alone it just looks terrible. And Wes Craven wasn't really happy with how the film ended, because he wanted a happy ending for the film, which I mean, I can understand why Wes Craven was frustrated with how the film ended. But Robert Shay saw potential for sequels and for a franchise, so he decided to, like, go with the ending that we got for this film. I'm kind of 50-50 on this ending, but it led to sequels, and we got sequels, so I'll take what I can get, I guess. Despite, like, one small little nitpick that I have with this film, I still love it after all these years. It's not 100% perfect on all levels. There's, like, a few things here and there that haven't aged that well, But when you look at like classic 80s horror films, I mean, this is easily like one of the best, and I'm happy to call it one of the best horror films of all time. So I'm going to give A Nightmare on Elm Street an A. So what did y'all think of the film? Let me know in the comments below. And guys, thank you so much as always for watching. Looking forward to doing more videos really soon. And if you want my thoughts on old or new films, of course, you know where to find me.